something that I hadn't felt, I think, ever before, and that was an inner calm and inner peace, and there was no mind chatter, there was no stress, there was no goals, there was nothing to go get. We become less judgmental and more unconditionally loving. When we're more unconditionally loving, we heal ourselves. When we start breaking down those judgments, we'll find that the reason why we have those behaviors is more from a place of fear. What is keeping me from feeling peaceful? What are my triggers? What is it that creates unrest? What is it that creates challenges in my mind? A lot of people say they don't have time to meditate, or they don't have time, or you have to be, a yogi in the mountains to be able to achieve that kind of peace. The kinder we are to ourselves, the kinder we are to other people. If we are self-loving, self-caring, self-accepting, we'll be other-loving, other-accepting. Meditation is, in my opinion, very necessary to take time out and have a meditation practice. We could be the most tranquil, peaceful people alone, but what do relationships bring out of us that will show that what's still in us? As long as we're letting out those emotions, at the bottom, we know this is an experience. It's not us. The peace is still there. We are responsible, 100% responsible for the energy we bring to any room. So when we're at peace, absolutely is contagious. It's kind of an energy we emanate out. Peace doesn't mean, you're just sitting on a couch or, peace that's our state. Mm-hmm. Peace does not slow down our productivity. In fact, I would say there is something inside of us that wakes up, the wisdom.
Welcome, Sukhi ji. Today, I'd like to explore the topic of inner peace. It's something that we're all chasing after. Mm-hmm. I'd like to ask you, how would you define inner peace? And how is it different from, let's say, general happiness?
Yeah, thank you, Kiran. Inner peace is basically, to me, is contentment. Contentment with whatever is going on, whatever we have. In our inner state, we are content and almost tranquil, despite whatever's going on externally. Mm-hmm. As opposed to happiness, happiness relies on our external circumstances. Whatever is going on outside of us, we rely on for happiness. So this thing will give me happiness, this experience will give me happiness, this food will give me happiness, or this person will give me happiness. And it's very, very much tied up with our external circumstances. Whereas peace is internal. It does not matter what's going on outside.
I see. So you derive it from within.
Yeah.
And it's not dependent on external circumstances at all.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty something to think about, So why is it that so many of us struggle nowadays to find inner peace?
I think now in this day and age, the struggle is that we are so driven. As a society, we're driven to achieve. So achieve the titles, achieve the awards, achieve the positions, get the status quo. And so that basically is, again, very external driven, and comparing and comparison and competitions is very much at the forefront when it's all external, and ego. It's all coming from the ego. And therein lies the problem, if you want to call it a problem, in peace. It's difficult to be in peace when all we're doing is competing and comparing and trying to achieve, do, get. It's the mindset is always, like we're not at rest, we're not calm. We're challenging ourselves, we're competing and we're comparing, and it's like, how can the next task to do to achieve that result.
Right. And
so there is no peace in that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, because like with goals, like you achieve one, and then you already
The
have
next
another
one,
one, and
yeah.
then the next one, and then the next one, and there's no.
Yeah.
So
And it's the law of diminishing returns. So as soon as generally, we've accomplished one goal, the mind, it wants to set the next goal. And there is no rest. Like, how often do we see people achieving their goals and really sitting and relishing that achievement and appreciating their hard work and everything that's gone into it? And if it's a group that's also worked at that, really appreciating that. It's very much, okay, this is done, what's next?
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then whatever the achievement is, especially material possessions, then you want the bigger house or the
Bigger,
better
better,
car.
larger.
Yeah. Bigger,
Yeah.
better, newer. So then it's like never ending, basically, right? So how does one begin one's journey towards inner peace? Like what's a good starting point or
Yeah, it's actually not that difficult, Kiran, in that beginning a journey inwards, really, that's all it is going back inside. So I think awareness of what is keeping me from feeling peaceful. What are my triggers? What is it that creates unrest? What is it that creates challenges in my mind? What is taking me away from my peace? Be aware of that. Awareness is very, very important. And then noticing that and being aware of that is, I think, step one. Step two is then having some moments in place daily that sitting with self. That could be inward reflection, that could be journaling. The beginning steps could be journaling, it could be just focusing on breath, could be taking a walk in nature. Those are very, very easy and doable first steps on the journey back to peace.
yeah, that sounds great actually. So these specific practices, yes, I'm trying to just see how many of those I already do, and
Yeah.
and you're right. I think self-awareness is really key, right?
Absolutely, yeah. What's taking me away from my peace and how can I go back?
So journey inward. Well, that's great. Thank you. So can you describe a moment in your life when you experienced real inner peace? How did it feel like, and how did you identify it or relate to it, and how long can you hang on to it, or is it just there all the time, or like I'm curious to know that.
Yeah, the first time I actually experienced complete inner tranquility and peace was I went to a retreat. And at the retreat, there was a lot of meditation, a lot of self time, reflection time. And at that time, I was very busy and very task driven. And again, the do, get type of mentality. And I had that retreat gave me an opportunity to break that pattern. And so, in breaking the pattern, I had some time to sit with myself and do some spiritual practices and some meditation. And I felt something that I hadn't felt, I think, ever before. And that was an inner calm and inner peace. And there was no mind chatter, there was no stress, there was no goals, there was nothing to go get. It was just an amazing experience at just being. And there, I think, really, in that experience, showed me that, okay, this is our true essence. This is who we are. And everything else is things we pile onto ourselves.
Right. So any sort of something that, like you said, break the pattern
Yeah.
of the rush, 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 do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
It's necessary. I think the other question was, can it be permanent? Was that your other question?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
can it coexist with life's challenges the way it is today, with the
Absolutely,
busyness
yeah.
and with the pain and with whatever else? So can it kind of coexist, and can you
Yeah.
make it kind of more permanent?
Yeah, I think the misconception is that peace can only be attained if we're sitting in the mountains and meditating. But sitting in the mountains and meditating is so that we have a better 24 hours. So it should then tie into our whole existence, not just a separate practice. Absolutely can coexist with our life. It's we become that. So inwardly, we're connected to the divine, to the soul. We're peaceful or blissful. Outwardly, we're engaging with the world. those little hiccups that come in life, like, with the challenges, as you said, those little hiccups stay little hiccups. We don't we don't become hijacked or dragged down by those experiences. They're just almost we're learning to be the witness of that instead of the actor in that. And so that's could come with time, it could come instantaneously, but eventually we want to learn to be the witness of all that is and not the actor in there.
Profound, profound. Actually, that really puts it in perspective for me.
Thank you.
That's really great. So, what would you say are the common obstacles or misconceptions that prevent people from finding inner peace?
Yeah. So one of the misconceptions I did speak about is that a lot of people say they don't have time to meditate, or they don't have time, or you have to be, a yogi in the mountains to be able to achieve that kind of peace. And it's actually not the case. We do need to take some time out to be with ourselves. If we don't take time out to be with ourselves, how are we going to know ourselves? Then we're slaves to the mind and the emotions and the commotions and the drama. But once we get to know ourselves, we have our baseline. We know our essence. We know what we are, who we are. And then, the identification with all the other layers, we know it's just the layers. We know we're in like commotion. And we start peeling back to devotion. Initially, we might not recognize it, or it may take time to get back to a natural state. But it's over time, a natural state is what becomes the leading factor in our lives, and everything else is just hiccups, like just little blurbs of oh yeah, okay, and I noticed that, I experienced this versus I am this. So the challenges are, in answer to your question, the challenges can be that we don't give ourselves the chance to do that, or we think it's for other people that have more time, or the other people that are just naturally spiritual. We're all spiritual beings having a human experience.
Or like someone like me tends to think, yeah, it's for the people who have more time.
Absolutely.
Or their lives are better or easier, more peaceful. Their circumstances
they have more
are
money,
easier.
They don't have to work.
Yeah, or
things like that.
Yeah, like their circumstances are easier, their life isn't that tough, or they don't have as much conflict, or just they have a happier family or something like,
We make excuses for our own commitment to ourselves, yeah.
So, yeah, and I thought, I would think that those are the reasons as opposed to excuses. But so you're saying it's self-awareness, and what's the role of self-acceptance in finding inner peace?
I think it's all self-acceptance. Like, when we judge, we're harsh on ourselves. So the first thing is to do when we're going inwards. There's a real need to accept where we're at. Just like we would be if somebody else came to us for help. We would not sit and start judging them and pointing the finger. That's the same kind of thing we need to do to ourselves. It's like, accept where we're at, accept our seeming downfalls and insecurities and et cetera, and turn back to loving our essence, loving ourselves for who we are, and everything else is because of our experiences. As we begin to accept ourselves fully, and all aspects of ourself, so the ego, the mind, the soul, we become less judgmental and more unconditionally loving. When we're more unconditionally loving, we heal ourselves.
So more unconditionally loving towards ourselves.
Ourselves first ourselves, absolutely.
Wow. Actually, that's a very valid point, because I think, like you're saying, a lot of times, even myself, we tend to be our own worst, harshest critic.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? And so that's a challenge. So that's something to work on. And how can one start working on that? And how to become more self-acceptance? Yeah.
Yeah, becoming self-accepting, I think, again, it always starts with self-awareness. Where am I judging myself? Maybe even take it out of ourselves and write it on paper, take a pen and paper, all my judgments about myself, and challenge those judgments. Is it true? We can never be 100% of our judgment all the time. So, for example, if the judgment is, I'm lazy, is it absolutely true? There's times when we go and do things, we're proactive, if we're lazy in one area of our life, we may not be in another area of our life. So it can't be 100% true.
Right. Or I'm a procrastinator.
I'm a procrastinator in some areas, and some areas we get up and go and get things done. So no judgment is 100% true 100% of the time. So we challenge it and we negate it. It's not true. In some areas of my life, I am. Yeah. And that's,
Or at certain, or sometimes.
yeah.
Right.
And sometimes. And so I can change that or not. It's okay to sometimes be lazy. I mean, I would say change the word lazy to self-care. I'm taking care of myself right now. And when we change it to self-care, it's kinder, it's more gentle, it's generous, and sometimes we need more self-care and sometimes we don't.
Right.
And so lazy is one example. And then procrastination, like you said, well, maybe it's fear. And procrastinating, why? Maybe I'm scared of this, or I'm not prepared for this. And so then we take the judgment away and we find out what the reason is, and then we can deal with that. And then the self-acceptance is easier. When we start breaking down those judgments, we'll find that the reason why we have those behaviors is more from a place of fear. And we can...
Fear of failure, fear of not doing well enough, like perfectionism and all that.
And then when we're kind to ourselves, we can heal that part of ourselves and maybe change or maybe not. Up to us, right? There is no, again, we're not going into goals and goal setting here. We're going into more self-kindness and compassion. And sometimes you need to procrastinate just to give yourself a break.
And I think it ties in with you're saying either change or not. And if we don't change, then accepted self-acceptance that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So it kind of ties in with that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I remember when we were younger and not doing the housework wasn't a choice. Doesn't matter if we were ill or not feeling, if we were feeling tired or we had homework, the housework was a must. And initially when I was, older, and I would judge myself if I didn't feel like doing the housework and I didn't do it, there was harsh judgment on myself until I came to the realization, it's like, it's okay, that can be done tomorrow. That is a task, people first, humans first, task second. And as soon as I learned that, it really changed me as a person, I think inwardly and outwardly. Because what we judge in ourselves, we judge outwardly too. We can only see what we are.
Right. So it's about reframing our
Yeah.
concepts, or it's a little bit cognitions, right?
Yeah. Reframing our judgments about ourselves. The kinder we are to ourselves, the kinder we are to other people. If we are self-loving, self-caring, self-accepting, we'll be other-loving, other-accepting.
So it starts from within.
It starts from within, yeah.
That's great to know, actually. I have homework, I can see. So do spiritual practices or meditation play a role in achieving inner peace? Do they help?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think meditation and self-awareness go hand in hand, but absolutely to break the patterns of the day, meditation is, in my opinion, very necessary, to take time out and have a meditation practice. If not for anything else, just to bring us immediately back into the moment and to a no-mind place. Meditation is very, very important, in my opinion.
I see. Thank you. Yeah. And so what role do relationships and other external and our external environment, what role do they play in affecting inner peace?
I think relationships are a great test for us. We could be the most tranquil, peaceful people alone, but what do relationships bring out of us that will show that what's still in us? Right?
Exactly.
So if we're tranquil alone and then always triggered with every little action or reaction of a person, then there's still work to do. there's still work to do. And if we can be in any situation, generally speaking, we're mostly not triggered, and we're accepting, and we're kind and considerate and compassionate, inwardly and outwardly, then we know, that mostly our self-acceptance or peace is what is leading us. But you can be peaceful at home and then highly triggered in our relationships.
But
That's not peace.
for when you say at home, like if the relationships are at home.
Right. Well, at home, I mean inwards. If we're sitting in with ourselves and we feel we're very peaceful people, and the moment we come into a relationship with anybody and we're triggered, it means that there's still layers and triggers sitting inside of us that we can look at and become aware of.
I see. So is inner peace something that we can permanently achieve, or is it an ongoing, continual process?
I think it's an ongoing, continual process, because as long as we're living in the world. Now, if you're, again, sitting on top of a mountain, it's very easy to achieve Zen state. But as long as we're living in the world, there'll be little triggers. They won't be as big as when we first started on the journey of self-awareness. But there will always be something to show us what's still left inside of us. And so I think as the length of our journey of self-awareness and commitment and meditation deepens, the less the triggers will be, but it will be a lifelong process. Awareness of, oh, that triggered me. And I always go back to your family, I think, like siblings and parents are a great indicator of how far we've come. We could feel all Zen in every single experience and in every single relationship, and then go back to in our sibling positions, and the sibling rivalry comes up, and we almost always take that position back when a family comes together as we were as children.
Yes.
Now we see how we relate in that situation will show us how far really we've come in the journey of
these
peace.
Family and intimate relationships, these are the most challenging.
Absolutely.
And I guess they're that way for a reason, and that those are the real tests, I guess.
And teachers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. And so and how does one cultivate peace while dealing with grief or pain, like if somebody's
going through some grief? I think in this case, so it's very easy to have a label that I should be peaceful, and that's not authentic. In grief, I would say absolutely feel the pain. Feel the pain and don't judge yourself in that. There's crying, be messy or whatever you need to do to grieve. And as long as we're letting out those emotions, at the bottom, we know this is an experience. It's not us. The peace is still there. So you have that deep spiritual foundation of peace. And on top, there is an experience. And you're grieving that, or you're going through the motions of that. As long as always at the bottom, we will always come back to, maybe in the moment of grieving, we're not there, but we always come back to, this too shall pass at some point. But be real in it. We don't want to, peace does not mean be all, superficial. Peace is actually authentic in that. And grieving, I think one of those things is that we want to go through this experience saying that it should be a different way. No, I absolutely think that in especially a loss of a loved one or a relationship or that, grieve, cry, be authentic, do whatever it needs to do for it to release. But the foundation we always come back to is that peace.
I see. So what you're saying is like allow yourself to be immersed in it fully.
Absolutely, yeah.
Once you experience it and when it's released, then you'll get back to your basic foundation.
Yeah, I'm a great believer in if you need a punching bag, get it. An actual punching bag, not a person.
So what advice would you give to someone who feels lost or disconnected and wants to find inner peace?
Lost or disconnected from themselves, I definitely would recommend to find a meditation group to go to, because it is easier than trying to do it yourself. When you find a meditation group, and the collective energy is far, far more stronger and powerful than sitting alone. So find somewhere, or you could begin by reading self-help books. It's a slower way, but definitely it would be something could just spark in there, and then one thing will lead to the next, to the next, to the next. When the student is ready, the teacher appears, and it will show up in many different ways. But I think like belonging, if they're feeling lost, the first thing they need is a belonging. So belonging in a spiritual group or a meditation circle or something that's close to them or local to them is a great way to start. Heart-centeredness is also important, I think. Like, coming back to the heart, when we feel lost, we're very, very away from our heart center. So coming back to heart, and simple things like breath awareness, slow down the breath, put the hand on the heart and really feel yourself again, get reconnected. If we're disconnected, it's, so hand on the heart and breathing, slowly. Start journaling is a great way to reconnect with the selves. So get out into nature. Again, those common things that I refer back to are very simple. It doesn't cost anything, and we can do it instantaneously. Like, we can go get up and do that like now. There's no plan to be made for it.
I think what really, a lot of these one has heard, or it's great to
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think what really stood out for me here is where you're saying it's much easier to do, one, to get the sense of belonging in a group, and then it's easier to do it in a group than individually.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I'm going to keep in mind for myself. It's really helpful. And so another thing I'd like to ask is, in a world that's always prioritizing, being busy and achieving, or productivity, right? So how does one balance that, or how do you prioritize peace without feeling like lazy or unproductive? Because we have all those negative sort of labels attached to just,
taking it easy.
Yeah, to just be sitting and not doing something.
Yeah.
We should be doing. Productivity is.
I think, Kiran, in my experience, I think we can be more productive when we're actually at peace. Peace doesn't mean, you're just sitting on a couch, or, peace that's our state. Peace does not slow down our productivity. In fact, I would say there is something inside of us that wakes up, the wisdom. And wisdom and intelligence is far superior than intellect. Far superior. And when the wisdom wakes up, things that we may have to think about 10 times, 20 times, or create a plan, or that the intelligence can just give us all the information we need just, in seconds. So I find I am more productive now than I was when I was using my intellect. It's easier.
Wow. So I guess one has to get to that stage first. So it's probably easier or better decision making and quicker or whatever.
Yeah, and actually eventually we come to the place where we're not making the decisions. It's not our mind making the decisions. The intelligence inside of us is carrying us. You can call that soul, spirit, consciousness. And consciousness is far more productive, if that's a word you want to use, or intelligent than we can be.
Wow.
And that's ultimate peace.
So if we are pursuing inner peace, can that influence or inspire others around us? Like, is this contagious?
Yeah. We are responsible, 100% responsible for the energy we bring to any room. So when we're at peace, absolutely is contagious. It's kind of an energy we emanate out. And the enlightened beings that have walked this planet, they've left their legacy and their energy for others to learn from for thousands of years. I mean, look at Buddha and Jesus and all the other prophets that have come on in the world. Even now, we're referring to them and doing some of the practicing some of the teachings that they left behind for us. So that is the ultimate of enlightened beings, that's what they leave behind. Now, for us, like as a person, we walk into a room. Just think of it like this: we walk into a room and somebody has got very harsh feelings towards us. We feel it. We know it. Something inside of us knows that that person doesn't like me or it's ill feelings. Well, same as such when we walk into a room and we see a very peaceful Zen person, we naturally gravitate towards them. And so they're vibrating their energy, and peace is a very high vibration actually. And just sitting in a room with somebody who's peaceful can transform us. It can lift us up very, very quickly.
So that's a great point. And when you mentioned how group practices are better, or the energy,
it's an
makes it
expedited
easier,
process.
Expedited. So a question that comes to my mind is, like, there might be people there with higher vibration and better energy that help us or lift us higher.
Yeah.
But how about if there are people with
Lower
lower,
energy.
denser, more negative energy? Would that bring us down, or like, does it work both ways?
No, in a meditation setting, we'll talk about, there is, I talked about the intelligence. Well, the intelligence is, there's a microcosm and there's a macrocosm. And when we sit with the intention to meditate, and the teacher must be connected. It's not, I think that's very, very important in a collective meditation. The teacher must have done their own work, the instructor or the teacher. And when they're connected, their energy will expedite the process of the whole group. It doesn't, I mean, naturally there's going to be people that are very low energy. There's going to be people that are in the middle ground, and there's going to be people that are more connected.
Right.
But even those, definitely those people that have low energy will feel it quicker, because the contrast is much larger.
Right. So the teacher, so it's really important to find a good teacher,
and who's done their work.
Who's done their work, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to use the word good and bad, but just a teacher who's done their work. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Finally, so what steps can someone take today to move to an inner state of peace?
Self-awareness is key, as we talked about, really knowing, where am I at? How do I feel on a day-to-day? Most of my day, how do I feel? And then if we are heavily in judgment, self and others, if we don't think we're judging ourselves, but we're judging others, we're judging ourselves somewhere. So start writing a list of the judgments we have for ourselves, not for other people, for ourselves. And then challenge those judgments. Every judgment can be challenged. Every judgment can be dealt with love and kindness and compassion. Find some meditation group to go to and start learning how to meditate. Spend some time in nature. Journal. It's very effective to get it out of us than keeping it inside of us. So those are some very easy,
doable, practical.
Absolutely doable first steps.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was great. Thank you so much, dear Sukhiji, for for all those wisdom that you've shared with us today.
Thank you.
For our next podcast, I think we'll talk about the journey of the soul, like a spiritual journey. I'm looking forward to the next podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you, and stay tuned.